Hey guys, how are you doing? In this video, we are not going to be building anything new from scratch. Instead, we're going to be studying in detail a project built by somebody else. If you're new to this channel, I specialize in Golang, Rust, Solidity, and JavaScript. I'm Akhil Sharma, and I have built more than 50 projects with Golang. Go check out my playlists if you want to check out more simpler projects. And usually in all of those videos, we build things from scratch, right? We plan out the APIs, we build everything from scratch. There's also a playlist which has 22 projects in Golang, all built from scratch. So check them out. So, but in this video, I'm doing something different. I'm doing something different because I'm going to be showing you a project and we'll go through the project together. We'll study that project together, but we won't be writing any code. We won't be building anything from scratch, okay? Now, there's the project that I want to show you is this project which has MongoDB, Golang, Docker, and Nginx all in one project which uses Docker stack. Okay. Now, there's a backstory to this project. So in 2017, which is 5 years back, when I was a Golang developer, but I wasn't using Golang in production. I was using a lot of Node.js in production, but I never used Golang in production up until that time in 2017. And the reason for that was that I had never seen a good example with Golang, Docker, MongoDB, Nginx. And you can't just use Docker. You'll have to use something like a Docker stack or something, right? So I never used, the scene was not very warm at that point of time, 5 years back. And I hadn't seen this kind of an example then, but this project kind of changed the whole trajectory. And this is after this time, I started using Golang very heavily in production because I'd seen this example. So this example was pretty legit, right, back then. And this was built by somebody called Vincent Raba. So a huge shout out to him because this project really helped me 5 years back. And this is why I wanted to take you behind the scenes and show you how my journey was, right? And how I picked up projects, how I learned, and how I started using Golang in production. So instead of, just building something from scratch, I thought, why not show you my journey instead? So this article is in French. I didn't understand a word of it, but I had his code for reference. And I didn't understand the commands and whatever he had written here. It looked pretty nice, pretty legit, right? The article was well written, even if it's in French, not a problem. The most important thing was this command out here, which helps you to deploy the project with Docker stack. Now, what I've done here is I will be leaving the link to the code of this project and to this article in the description box below. What you have to do is you have to clone this repository in your computer. If you want to study this project with me, or you can skip it if you want, skip this whole video if you want, but this is what we're doing. We're just going to go through the entire project, how he built this project and what all I learned from this and how I started using it in production. So if you want to follow along with me, if you want to, look at how, he's built it, it's amazing. And again, a huge shout out to Vincent Raba because it really helped me a lot at that time, right? So just a tip for you guys, also keep leaving things out there into the universe. It'll help a lot of people. That's why I used to use GitLab a lot because it helps you with private repositories. In your company projects, you don't want to use GitHub for public projects. But recently I started putting some things on GitHub as well so that it helps people, right? Because I realized how much others' code has helped me. So this project, now I have made a copy of it already. Go ahead and clone it. And what you want to do is you don't have to install anything, right? That's the beauty with Docker, because otherwise you'd have to install all the Golang packages, libraries, and if it had a front end, you would have to do npm and yarn install all of that. But with Docker, by the way, this is not a full stack project. This is just a backend project. With Docker, all you have to do is you just have to copy this command, which is docker stack deploy. And you just have to go ahead and paste this command. I don't know why it's not happening. To go ahead and paste this command. I'll create 2 networks for you and 3 total services for you. So I'm just waiting for those services to get created. The services that will get created is the app back, which is the backend, which is Golang. The other services that will be created one will be for Nginx, the other will be for MongoDB. And while it takes time, we can look at the code, I think. Actually, it finished before I could open up another terminal to open up the code editor. So it finished creating all the services. Like I said, there will be 3 services. You'll see app back, my app Nginx, and my app MongoDB. And there'll be 2 networks which will be used for connecting between these services, which will be my app MongoGo and my app Nginx Go. Okay, so 2 networks, 3 services. That's what Docker Stack helps you to do. It helps you to create a combination of multiple services, and makes it very easy for you to build such projects which are using multiple different things like Nginx, MongoDB, Golang. All of these are very different things, right? Now, what you want to do is you want to open up this code. We're using a code editor. So I'm using VS Code. You could be using anything else. And what we'll do now is we'll do a quick 15-20 minutes study of this entire project. And this is how you learn. You look at what other people have done, look at their code, look at how they've organized it, and that's how you learn, all right? And you can use those learnings in your own projects. So this person, Vincent Raba, what he's done is he has created a contacts REST API folder, right? And then he's created a MongoDB folder and he's created an Nginx folder. So these are the three services you saw when we started the Docker stack. There are three different services, and those three different services basically are these, right? One is the Golang service, MongoDB service, Nginx service. Now, how do you interact with those APIs? Let me also show you how to interact with those APIs, because the services are running, so you can also start interacting with those APIs. So what you can do essentially is you can write something like this, curl -x get, and make a get request to this URL, which is localhost 3000, where this app is running, and /contacts, which is how the APIs have been structured. We'll look at the APIs now in a while. And if you run something like this, you get all the contacts right now. There's just one contact in the database. So I'm just getting one contact in the database right now. And we'll be looking at how to make post requests and put requests. We'll go through all the APIs and then we'll make those requests. So I just want to show you quickly that you can interact with these APIs because the services are running at the back end. Okay, so from a 10,000 feet perspective, what I want you to know is that there are these three folders, right? You already took a note of that. Now, each of these folders, like let's say this Golang folder where the whole Golang code and logic is, has its own Docker file. So Golang has its own Docker file. And MongoDB, the MongoDB folder has its own Docker file. And this is how I'm registering, right? This is how I'm learning. So I'm learning that, okay, each folder, he has a different Docker file for each folder. And now his Nginx folder also has its own Docker file. Makes sense. Now, to be able to orchestrate or work with all these three different Docker files, what he's done is he's created a docker stack.yaml file. In this docker stack.yaml file, you can see that he has services. This is the most important part. So this is how you read a docker stack file in case you haven't done that before. So in services, you have one service called appback, which is the backend application for Golang. Then you have your Nginx. So you can see they're in the same line. So when you follow this line out here, when you click on this, you follow this line, you see that all of these things that will fall on this line will be the services that we're talking about. So services are only three: appback, there's Nginx, and there's MongoDB. This is how you read a YAML file, more specifically the Docker stack file. So there are these three services that are running. Now each service has its own image. Now these are the images that he has uploaded on the Docker Hub, itwatch/mygo. But you can always go ahead and remove his images and create your own images. Only thing is you'll have to go to each folder, all of these folders, and you'll have to build those images on your own with this name. And you say docker build and you put this name, whatever name you want to put, and then you can have your own images. And then when you call those images here, you can just run this docker stack command and the whole project will run again with your images if you want to make any changes, right? I will leave it like this because I'm not making any changes. I'm just showing you the code right now. So the networks that this service uses are MongoGo and Nginx Go. Obviously, it needs to connect with Mongo and Nginx Golang, right? And it's working on port 3000. We know that because we just made a request port 3000, the GET request, and then we got something back. And what does this Golang service depend on? It depends on MongoDB. Awesome, we know that. Then what do you want to deploy? You want to deploy just one replica. You can change that from here, or you can change that from the CLI as well using the docker stack command. You can do any of these things. And you just want to have two parallelism, 10-second delay. And these are not compulsory, but these are optional. You can use them. It's a good practice. Then you have Nginx. Nginx again has its own image. You have a volume here as well. Ports 8080 and 443 are there. It also has a network, Nginx Go. Now both of these services need to be connected to the same network so that they're able to communicate, right? A lot of people, when they're starting out, the mistake that they make is that they think that if they connect Golang to the Nginx Go service, then everything will work perfectly, because they somehow assume that Nginx will automatically be connected to that service. No, but with YAML files, with Docker, you have to specifically call out that it needs to get connected to the Nginx Go service, and the Golang also needs to get connected to the same service, and only then they'll be able to talk to each other. Now, what does it depend on? So just like our backend for Golang depended on MongoDB, our Nginx depends on the backend, Golang backend. And then the same thing, deploy. How do you want to deploy it? All right. And then you have MongoDB. MongoDB also has its own image, has its own volume. You want to have a volume for MongoDB because volumes with Docker basically store data, right? So read about volumes with Docker in case you don't know. But in just a short thing is Docker volume is something that just stores data for a Docker container. And then you have these ports open. We also obviously know that 27017 is the default port that MongoDB works on. Again, the deploy criteria for it, we have one replica, two parallelism, and all that. And then we're mentioning the networks. How many networks do you have? So this is at the services level. You can see at the services level, you're defining the networks. You're defining that there are only two networks, MongoGo and Nginx Go, because MongoDB requires MongoGo, and the backend requires both MongoGo and Nginx Go, and Nginx Go just requires Nginx Go. Okay, so Golang is connected to Nginx, Golang is connected to MongoDB, and MongoDB and Nginx are both connected to Golang. Make sense? All right. So, and volumes also we have mentioned. MongoDB data is the name of the volume, which we have utilized in MongoDB. All right. So if you, in case you're using multiple databases, like if you're using Redis also and Cassandra and MongoDB, which is quite a common scenario when you work with a production level Golang application, then you would have those as separate services. They will have multiple replicas. Cassandra can't, you wouldn't want to have just one replica for Cassandra or something like Cassandra, right? So you'd want to have multiple replicas, and you would have to have volumes for both of those databases. So these are the things that you want to learn. So did you see how well planned out this project is? It has services, and you have complete clarity on these three services. They all have their own Docker files, and those Docker files will be converted into images. Those images are getting used here in Docker stack file. So from just by looking at this project itself, you've learned quite a bit on how to use Golang in production, right? Now we can actually start digging down into each of these folders. Okay, so Golang project has a config folder, which is basically a combination of server and database. Okay. And it's consuming the config toml file. So if you see there's a config toml file, it has your server, which is MongoDB. You wanted to know where's the data going to come from, right? Just like if you were not using Docker, you would have to have like HTTP localhost 27017, or if you were using some managed MongoDB, you would have to have cluster 0 database and blah blah blah. So that is your connection to your database server. And what's the exact database you are using? You're using ContextDB inside MongoDB. So you want to have these two things. Those are two things that are getting used in config. So config file is basically going to read config toml and create this kind of a struct, which can be used by Golang down the stream. Then you have your database level functions. So you're working with collection contacts, and you have your connect function to connect to the database. You have your find all function, find by ID, just the basic stuff, insert, which is creation, which is deletion, and you have update, delete, insert, just the standard stuff, right? Connect. And then you have your models. For models, you have it very simple. You have ID of the user, prenom in French, because this guy is French who's built this project. So prenom is basically first name, and nom is last name. And then you have your telephone number. Then you have your app.go, which is nothing but your handling of the routes, and firstly creating those routes here. So we have get, post, put, delete, and then get by ID. Then we are just initializing a server, saying listen in server 3000, and then all we're doing is that we have these functions like all contacts, find contact endpoint, create contact, update contact, delete contact. These are just accepting the body, handling the error, and then sending those requests to the DAO file that we just saw, contacts DAO file, which are database level functions. That's all that's happening. Very, very simple and straightforward project. Okay, so you have a models folder, like I said, app.go file, contacts.go file, and from your app.go file, which is the most important file here, you're just handling, you have listed out the APIs, you're handling those APIs, handling the data from the body, and you're sending it out after validation, you're sending it out to the contacts.dao file. All of the functions here, which are basically database level functions, they're interacting with the database. And that's how this whole system is working. Right, so this is sorted. This is easy. This is what we do. This is our bread and butter. As Golang developers, we do this all the time. Docker file is what's important for out here, which basically isn't doing much. It's doing all the things that you would do otherwise, right? It's going to go get all of the dependencies that you want to have. That's why we don't have a go mod file. If you notice, you don't have a go mod file, go.some file, because you want to get all of those things inside Docker container itself, right? And then you want to build it, go build, you want to go build, right? And then you want to start that application. And then you want to expose app 3000, and then you want to run the command app. Okay, so that's what the Docker Golang file is doing. And then you have your MongoDB. MongoDB just has a Docker file and just run shell script. That's it. So the Docker file says that you'd want to copy this file, which is run.sh, to the root, and then you want to change the permissions for it. You will upgrade. You'll run apt upgrade out there, and then you will add MongoDB there, blah 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 blah. You will add a volume, you will expose the port 27017, and then you want to run the shell script, and then you will just run your MongoDB server. So your shell script basically has giving access to the MongoDB user, so giving access to the database to the MongoDB user, and changing the owner of the database again, and you're using the exec command for the user MongoDB so that he's able to run these commands. So this will basically ensure that your MongoDB server is running, and this is your MongoDB Docker file. Then you have your Nginx Docker file. So Nginx Docker file, this is like a standard file. You can copy it from anywhere. You don't have to go into the specifics of it, but mostly it's using SSL and certificates to be able to connect with your Golang. And this basically makes it very easy because it's already using RSA keys and all of those and certificates, makes it very easy for you to use it on production later on, right? And you can go ahead and change these configurations based on how your server is going to be handled in the production side. And all I'm doing it as I'm just using it on localhost right now. So these are just the standard settings that we have right now. Okay. So we have gone through the 3 folders. We have quickly gone through the Docker files, and most importantly, we have looked at the Docker stack file, which is basically what I wanted you to see. This is the most important file, because these Docker files, these files, you can easily find them on Stack Overflow, right? You can find this kind of file for if you Google right now Docker file for let's say your Nginx server, you'll easily find this on Stack Overflow. Somebody would have pasted this, right? What you're not going to find is this file, dockerstack.yaml file. This is something you'll have to build on your own, because you are the person who is deciding which all images are going to be, which all service is going to be, which network it's going to work on, which port is going to be opened on. So all of those decisions will have to be taken by you. So this is why I spent more time here, because this is something that you'll have to write on your own. All of this, frankly speaking, I've probably never written any of this on my own. I've just copied it from Stack Overflow, really. I mean, just save time. Just save time. Don't sit and, write things from scratch. Just pick it up from Stack Overflow. So this is what we had. Now, what we'll do is we'll interact with those APIs. So you have understood how the project works. You've understood the mechanics of it. And that's all it took. It just took us like 15-20 minutes to just go through the entire project quickly. And like I said, I'll be leaving the link of this project in the description, the link of the article. Play around with this application, learn a lot, go through the details, make changes if you want. Okay, all of that. And also, just like I gave a shout out to Vincent, you also have to do that if you use his code, or if you show that I'm using it for educational purposes. I'm not making any changes to it. You can do the same as well, right? And take reference and build your own project. Don't use his code, because then you won't learn if you just use his code, right? Build your own stuff. Then take reference from him, how he has built his Docker stack file, right? This is the only place where you'll need reference, because everything else, like building the contacts REST API, we have done it so many times. We've done so many types of REST APIs in the past, right? So what you need his help for would be just this Docker stack .yaml file. All right, so let's go ahead and interact with our APIs. Now I will go ahead and create one more contact. So I'm going to be using the post command. Okay, so I'm using curl and I'm sending this data, which is name, which is, this is first name, this is last name. I'm just writing anything, Vincent is not my first name, I'm just writing anything out here. Then you have your telephone number, and then you're sending content type as application JSON and making a post request to your local host. Done. Okay, so when it says something like this, it means that it's added that there. Perfect. Now when you get the all the contacts, now you see there are 2 contacts here, which is expected because you just added 1 contact. Now what you want to do is we want to get a specific contact. So how do you do that? I'll put the specific contact's ID in front of it, and that gets us the specific contact. So the next thing to do is to check out how delete will work. So delete and put here will work in the similar way, where you will pass the exact data point here. So what we'll say here is, we'll say curl -k -d, and in these, sorry, my terminal is not able to handle all this stuff. Okay, so we'll start from scratch. We'll say curl -k -d, and we'll put the exact data point here, this entire thing from here to here. Okay, I'll close this with a single inverted comma, and I'll say -h, and actually I'll just copy and paste it instead of writing it. So we'll say -h content type application JSON, which is the same as the stuff earlier. Instead of post, you're just saying delete. That's it. And by the way, you'll find all these in his article as well. So I'll be leaving the link for the article as well. And this will help you to delete. So when you say something like this, result success, that means been deleted. And put is going to be exactly the same. So you can make a change here with the put, and you'll have to pass the whole data point instead of just the ID. Okay. So that was it. That was a nice project. We have interacted with the APIs. We've seen the Docker files, seen Docker stack. We've seen how he has structured the project. It's an awesome project. Make changes. Use the Nginx Docker file. Use the Nginx side of things. Build your own project. Use it in production. Feel free to do whatever you want. So I hope you like this video. And we can do more such videos. If you like this format, put in the comments below, where we're not building anything from scratch, but we're studying what other people have done and some projects that have been important for me in my learning journey. We can go and take a look at them like this. So if you like this, leave it in the comments below if you'd like me to cover more of such videos. Thanks a lot for watching. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with your friends. You don't get such awesome content, right, on YouTube, where somebody who's sharing his journey on how he learned and then breaking down a complete project. I don't think there are many projects like this on YouTube. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.